Good evening, I'm Jim Whaley. I'm quite pleased to have as my guest tonight on Cinema Showcase a superb actor who has won praise and acclaim the world over, Mr. Maximilian Schell. For his performance in Judgment at Nuremberg, he not only won the Academy Award as Best Actor of the Year, but the New York Film Critics Award as well. As a director, he is equally gifted with such films as First Love and last year's Academy Award nominee as Best Foreign Film, The Pedestrian. He gives one of his best performances as an actor in his new film, The Man in the Glass Booth. We'll be talking about that film tonight and some of his other motion pictures. So join me as I talk with Maximilian Schell on Cinema Showcase. Thank you very much for joining Cinema Showcase tonight. And Maximilian Schell, it is a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I hope you are enjoying your Atlanta stay so far. Are you getting a chance to see much of the city?
Well, unfortunately, as usual in these tours, just by car. But what I saw of the city was beautiful and evokes a lot of memories of the earlier time. I'm terribly interested in the history of the country. And from books like Thomas Wolfe and so, of course, Georgia is almost a legendary country.
Indeed, you're in one of the richest sections historically that the country has.
Sometimes I'm even almost afraid to go to a country like this because it's so full of stories, so full of possibilities for my profession that I would like to stay there and just take a car and a camera and film a story.
Great. I think you would be perfect in a Georgia story. So come to Georgia and make a movie.
I might very well do it.
You are, I know, extremely selective in the roles you play. But how selective are you in getting exactly the right role that suits you?
Well, as an actor, you only can be selective among the possibilities that are offered to you. And sometimes the possibilities are very small. The scripts are not good or the directors are not right. So sometimes I didn't work for sometimes 15, 16 months. And then I felt suddenly empty. I felt like a soccer player who plays one match a year and suddenly has to play in a national team and is not prepared for. So I decided a few years ago not to be so selective anymore, but just among the possibilities to choose whatever I can, whatever is offered to me. And in the meantime, I do my own things. So I started to produce and direct. And direction anyway suits me more. I think when a man passes 40, he wants to have more responsibility. He wants to work with the people he likes, with his friends. He wants to choose the stories. Like now, when I come to Atlanta as an actor, I'm sure I have no possibility ever to participate in a picture about Georgia. But as a producer, or as a writer, or as a filmmaker, I have all the chances.
Well, do you immediately know when a script is submitted to you or a story that you read, if it's right for you?
I think that you know immediately, yes. But it very rarely happens. And then there are other things which are important, like the director. I think for the actors, the most important thing is to have a good director. Because if you have a good director, you have a good cameraman, you have a good writer, you have a good setup. Also, you have enough financing for the film, which is all very helpful to make a good motion picture. So the script alone is not the thing. I think it's more the director and the script, and then the cast and whatever they do with it.
It's interesting that you say that because a lot of people believe that, well, I'm sure you would agree that you have to start out basically with a decent script. You can't, someone said you can't build a sturdy house on a bad foundation or something. Or do you think the script is all that
Well,
important?
I think that sturdy house on a bad foundation, if an architect has enough fantasy and says, I want to put something very extraordinary. You mentioned before the castle Neuschwanstein. Like Ludwig II, the king of Bavaria, had the idea, I want to have a castle on that rock. Now, of course, that rock wasn't a very good foundation for the castle, but he made it happen. So I think a man who has a lot of fantasy, and the director is supposed to have fantasy, he can make it happen by just making films, even just out of an idea.
That's right.
Even great men like Richard Wagner, when he did, I think, the Walküre, he did the whole opera just out of idea because he felt that 3 female figures should float in a background of the stage. I think that was his first image he writes in a letter. And out of that image, he just built the story.
Yeah.
And when I did The Pedestrian, I got out from an idea. I think I read about a case in Uradur where one woman survived a massacre in a church. And I just wondered what happened to that woman. Where is she now? Does she still live? How are her memories? And what would she ever do if she would recognize one of the men who were there participating in the shooting? And that was the original idea for The Pedestrian. And in the now quite famous streetcar scene, that's really the moment when the film happened and when the film started. So the first sketches were just these scenes. The man in the streetcar, the woman in the streetcar, the memories. And then I felt it was not enough for the story. Then we built around it. The family had to be invented, and the newspaper who tried to search him out have to be invented. And then came the script. So in this case, the director, or the idea was first, and then the script. And then the movie was quite different from the script again. I think the movie was much better than the script. Also, when I worked with John Voight, not in the Odessa file, but in my last film I did with him, Murder on the Bridge, many things we just discussed. And although there was a script, we improvised a lot, and sometimes we cut out words because the silence was stronger than the words.
I think you would probably limit your actors to a great extent if you adhered that closely to the printed word and didn't allow them to contribute.
Yes, John Voight always asked me. He had a scene with Jacqueline Bisset where he tried to almost to rape her because she refused constantly his love. And he said, I'm so worried about this scene. And Dürrenmatt, who is the original author, he said, Max, I don't know what to do with this scene. And I just always knew it would work somehow. So we wrote sometimes 3 pages of dialogue, because that's the only thing actor really can hold on, is dialogue. They want to say words. And when it came to do the scene, we cut down the dialogue to about 3 sentences. And everything else happened in silence. And when Robert Shaw watched the movie, he said that is for him probably the most exciting rape scene he ever saw, if at all a rape scene.
Yeah. I know so many of the most effective moments in any film can be those very lyrical moments.
Well, I thought a lot about it because I always felt that words are really very important for the stage. But already when I was a stage director, I tried to create silence in the stage, because I felt as an actor, when you're suddenly silent, the audience wakes up and says, what happens now? They don't talk anymore. It's silent. So I tried to create in a Pirandello play once a scene which almost was 3 minutes on the stage without a word, and it worked beautifully. And then I thought, why I'm fascinated by silence. And then I thought about human beings. Most things we do happen in silence. You only talk when you meet someone or when you live with someone. But most people, when they live alone, they get up in the morning, they love, they read the newspaper alone, you know, they in silence, they work in silence, they feel in silence, they die. Mostly death is in silence, birth is in silence, except the baby starts to scream immediately, but it doesn't use any words. So why should not motion picture, who is the only art to capture silence in a beautiful way? Because music, you cannot capture it.
Right.
Painting, that's silence too, but in a different way. So to capture silence, I think, is wonderful. And in First Love, as you know, it's sometimes 10 minutes without any words, and it works beautifully.
It certainly does. Let's talk for a while about your new film, Man in the Glass Booth, and I don't think I would be alone in saying that it contains one of your finest performances, certainly, if not the finest as an actor. And I guess one of the most important things, are you pleased with it? Did you bring to it all that you wanted to bring to it as an actor?
That's a very hard question. I think I never saw the finished film. And it's the first film I don't want to see, because I heard so wonderful things about it that I'm afraid I might be disappointed. So I just leave it by that. But it's very strange. It's really like almost every human being. When you undertake a certain work, or when you have a certain theme you have to manage to get over with, you just work. I mean, you're just thrown into the work. The moment Arthur Hiller persuaded me to do Man in the Glass Booth, because when I read it first, I thought I'm wrong for the part. I'm too young, and it has nothing to do with me. But he really talked me into, the moment I decided, we had about 2 months left until we started rehearsals. So the first thing was to learn the lines. Then I had just to work on the lines. Then I had to coach. And you know, there are 5-minute speeches
Yes.
in the script, which are terribly difficult. It's probably the most difficult part I ever played, including Hamlet. And you have to do it like 5-finger exercises, like I worked on a piano when you play a sonata. You have to work so hard on every word, on every moment, pauses, that you don't have time to think, did I do my best? You just try to get it done. And when we did it, also the moment when you come to do it, it's cold. It's not like on a stage when you can rehearse for 4 weeks or 5 weeks and then you do it. No, you have to do it in the morning, 9 o'clock, 200 extras sitting there, the glass booth, the camera is set, the lights are on, and now Max, please. All right. And you know, just there. It's no time to practice. So that long speech, when he gets up in the glass booth and recalls the great, so-called great past, I asked Arthur Hiller if we could rehearse it, at least for us, him and me. So we went on a Sunday afternoon to the Fox studios, got into it. It was difficult to find the key, but we found it eventually, and they climbed into the glass booth because
He
the glass
told me
booth
about
was
that.
yeah. And then we rehearsed it about 3-4 times, and that gave me at least enough confidence to do it then the next day in front of everybody. Because you see, acting is somehow actors like to hide, I think, behind their roles. And basically, I think actors are sometimes shy persons. At least I am. I feel embarrassed if I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And just to come cold on and make a speech of 5 minutes in a different language than I'm used to wasn't too easy.
Since this was made for the American Film Theater, was it filmed in any peculiar way, or was it filmed as most films are made?
Well, as an actor, I didn't find any difference. But I think the American Film Theater, people always say, what is it now? Is it a play or is it a film? And I just think it's a filmed play.
Right.
It's exactly what the American Film Theater want to say, a film theater. That means plays which otherwise would never have been made into movies, and many people would miss an opportunity to see a good play and a good cast. So they film these plays as well as they can, with the best directors they can get, with the best actors they can get. And I must say, it enriches the scene tremendously, because when I saw The Iceman Cometh or when I saw The Homecoming, they're really not only good plays, but they're also good wonderful films and preserve performances which would have been gone by now. If you think of Robert Ryan or Frederick March, they're great performances which I would never like to miss. I would have missed them if the American Film Theater wouldn't have done it.
It would be difficult, I know, to synopsize Man in the Glass Booth at all, so I won't really ask you to do that, but for the benefit of those in the audience who have not seen it and perhaps don't know what it's about, could you tell them a little bit about the subject?
The subject is a very eccentric, rich New York Jew who made a lot of money. He's now 65 years old, at the end of his life, and suddenly, because I think he's close to death, he starts to re-examine the past, and he suddenly sees shadows of the past, or he sees his father pushing a pretzel cart on Fifth Avenue, and to the people around him, he seems absolutely mad and eccentric, but somehow he is not. He is very cynical about it. He is very funny. He's a very funny character, and with his great sense of humor, I think he overcomes these shadows. But more and more, the audience is drawn into a strange world, almost into a penthouse glass booth already. The penthouse is already full of windows which shut him off from the world. And then at the end of the first act, he's kidnapped by Israelis, because they claim that he's not really a Jew, but he really is Dorf, as he refers to his cousin Dorf, who was a commander of the camp he was in, and that camp he survived. So he's put on trial in Israel, in that glass booth, which refers, of course, to the Eichmann trial. And there, instead of defending himself, like everybody does, in the country, he admits everything. He thinks it was marvelous, that time. It was a wonderful time. We killed a lot of people, yes, and it was necessary, and everybody would do it, and you would do it if you would have the opportunity. And suddenly he evokes in people emotions which they never experienced, really. And at the end, of course, comes the famous switch, which I maybe shouldn't tell, because it's better to that people see the film, but it's quite a surprising ending, and a very satisfactory ending because it justifies Goldman in every way.
Yeah. We have a scene from Man in the Glass Booth, and I believe this takes place in the first half of the film in Manhattan. Does it need any particular setting up before we look at it?
No, I think it's just a moment after he warned his people that soon somebody might come to take him away, and he really expects now the Israelis to break in and to kidnap him, and I think that's the scene we're going to see.
Very good. Here's a scene right now featuring Maximilian Schell in The Man in the Glass Booth.
Dining room clear. The house locked. On your feet.
Willkommen, Herr Übermensch.
He's unarmed.
Get your clothes off.
Why are you doing this to Mr. Goldman?
This is Charlie Cohen.
So he claims.
Your boss may have a cyanide capsule up his ass. Goering did.
Ah.
Everything. Now bend over.
A scene from The Man in the Glass Booth, featuring my guest, Maximilian Schell. A number of your films and projects in the past decade have dealt with the problems arising out of World War II. And this is not accidental on your part, is it?
Well, it's partially my origin. I'm Swiss, and I speak the German language, and I grew up in the German theater. So people naturally think of me first when they have a film which deals with that theme. And I also found when I came, especially to this country, that people never quite understood that time and what happened at that time in Germany. And I have many friends in Germany, and I have many friends in America, and I think somehow it's good to make them understand a little bit, little things, like for them every German is a Nazi.
Yeah.
In my whole career, I only played one Nazi, because Nazi is like, somebody would say, a repi, a Republican, or a demi, a Democrat. Right. It's the National Socialist Party, that's the Nazi. But for example, there was a big conflict in Germany between the army and the Nazi. So in Young Lions, I played an army officer who was very much against Hitler's Germany, but they couldn't at that time, couldn't do anything against it. And the only Nazi I really played was in the Odessa file, where he's a real criminal. Everything else had nothing to do with Nazis. So that distinction between Nazi and Germans or German officers, I know it might be a minor distinction, but it's like when you say you're from Mexico, which means New York. You know, it's just there is a difference, and sometimes it should be said. Also, it should be said that the young people today in Germany try not to forget it, but try to get over it. They are tired of being the best hated people in the world because of something what their fathers did in their past. Probably they hate their fathers for it. Some of them love it. You know, it's always like in every country there are good people and bad people. But I think the general trend of the youth in Germany today is to be free, to be very much, very close to nature, and they feel very much unified with the rest of the world. Not only with the youth, but they love, for example, all the American art and the whole influence of American pop music is a tremendous one, and I choose purposely the word pop music because that means people are sitting together again, singing together again, talking together again. And I just found that I traveled such a lot, and I found you can almost have a friendship with almost everybody. Even when people, I was once attacked by a man who wanted something from me, and I just started to talk to him. I said, look, it's not necessary to hit me, and I could hit back, but I don't want to. What's the problem? And we got into a talk, and we ended up almost being friends. So I think if you really deal with people in an honest way, it's good. And that's why I think doing films like that to remind people what happened in the past, how it came to it, and that it always could happen again, anytime, is important. And since everybody runs after career or after money or after commercials and doesn't think too much or doesn't take time off, sometimes who else should do it than the filmmakers and the poets to remind people that there are other things in life which could endanger the reality of today.
I've often thought, having visited Germany several times, that of all the countries that we had to go to war with, why did it have to be Germany? It's unfortunate that that had to happen there, because Hitler could have happened anywhere, really.
I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I think the German people had a tendency of being, how shall I say, like a herd, like a, to follow the Führer. And of course, at that time, it was a very difficult time. It was a very young democracy. It was only about 10 years after the First World War. People were not mature enough to think politically, to choose, to elect. And then the depression in the world helped that suddenly one man came and said, I solve all the problems for you. Of course, the way he did it, people should have known. I think when I see newsreel of that time, and my father left, as you know, it was not my decision, but it was my father's decision, and I'm very grateful for that. But I was just never taken into that great era of Hitler, but I could imagine that people just followed him because they thought, there is hope, there is now somebody who promises very clearly something, and afterwards it was too late. So whoever left the country was brave and lucky at the same time. But it's very interesting. I have a friend, Norbert Schiller, who plays in The Pedestrian, the actor, you might recall, and he left at that time Germany, and he always, he lives now in Santa Monica in California, and he's a poet, he's a writer, he's still an actor, but he thinks so much back of Germany, and always what he remembers is that wonderful romantic image he has, Christmas. The snow, the when people come and they dance in the snow, and there are lanterns and children coming and all that. Germany could be, and maybe will be one day, a wonderful romantic country. And that romantic image of Germany has been totally destroyed by Hitler.
I think maybe it's on its way back to being that, because
I wish anyway that the whole romantic image of people come back, like the United States, when you hear, well, Chicago is just a city where gangsters are. I was in Chicago. It's a wonderful city, and there are wonderful, pleasant people. Or I think Americans sometimes should discover their own continent. When I come to Los Angeles, I usually take a car and drive up to San Francisco, and then to the Lake Tahoe, and then down to the Gold Country and to Arizona and the Grand Canyon. I mean, this is a landscape that's so unbelievably beautiful that I always dream of making a picture there, like in Death Valley. I mean, that's a landscape which is out of this world.
You're not, I would imagine, usually asked to do westerns, though, are you? That's
No, but I regret that. I would love to play a cowboy, and I think it would be very natural, because most of the people coming to the West in the last century came from Europe. I think if nobody offers me one, I said even to George Roy Hill, who's a very good friend of mine, and we did 2 Players 90s together, I said, why do you always take Robert Redford and Paul Newman? Why don't you take a real cowboy from Switzerland, because they're the originated, the cowboys. I mean, these are the real cowboys. Comes to the West and could be a very funny character because he doesn't know how to handle a gun. He doesn't know how to handle Indians or Western, heroes. And then maybe he should meet John Wayne, who solves all the problems for him. It could be a very funny comedy.
Oh, I'll look forward.
And a good Western.
I'll look forward to that. I hope you make it.
Maybe I'll write it.
We only have a couple of minutes left, and I regret that because I wanted to spend more time talking about two films I admire of yours a lot, The Pedestrian and First Love. Do you think the fact that you have acted so much gives you a particular kind of insight into directing?
I think it helps a lot for the actors.
Yeah.
I was always, even as an actor, very much interested in my partner. Sometimes I watched my partner more than myself because I always say what makes a good performance. I say if you listen to your partner and you give then an answer, then you cannot be wrong. And as a director, it helped me tremendously to go into the problems of an actor. Like in the last film I directed, Murder on the Bridge, which is based on the novel The Judge and His Hangman by Dürrenmatt. And I had John Voight and Jacqueline Bisset and Robert Shaw and Martin Ritt, the director, playing the lead, and Donald Sutherland in a cameo role. I knew exactly, even the problems of when they come from the left side, they don't feel as happy as coming from the right side. And I consider that, and I try to make them feel happy. So that helped enormously. But for the rest of it, like the framing or the moving of the camera or the music, I just always had a natural feeling for that.
Yeah.
I started as a director on the stage, and when I have a camera in my hands or a cameraman on my side, I just sort of have a feeling for the moving of the camera, and I enjoy that tremendously.
Well, I think you have to have that. All good directors have to have. Unfortunately, they all don't have such a great feeling for the. That's one of the most important things is how the camera moves.
And capture the moment.
Yeah.
You see, I think somebody once said that every art is trying to survive death, to steal a little bit from death. And nothing more than the camera can do that. I mean, you watch on television sometimes movies where almost everybody is already dead, but they're still here, alive as they were, in their best moments of their lives. And also when you capture a happening like the burning of a forest or something, which would be not seen by anybody, suddenly you capture it by the camera and can be seen. Not only the camera work as a filmmaker, but also the newsreel. When you have the assassination of assassination of Kennedy, it will always be very, very close to people and will always be remembered because it has been captured by a camera.
That's right. We are, unfortunately, totally out of time. I don't know where it's gone, but I want to thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
I did it very much.
And come back and see us again.
Thank you.
My thanks to all of you for watching tonight. Join me again next time. Good evening.
Arrangements for the appearance of Maximilian Schell on Cinema Showcase were made through Michael Parver Associates, Atlanta.